In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome, all you lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Dustin Melbardis, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Chad Robinson. Chad, how are you?
I am riding in the passenger seat today, ready for the Dustin bus.
Ready, the Dustin bus coming through. What did you have for dinner tonight, Chad?
I had a steak grilled cheese burrito from Taco Bell in like 5 minutes because I had to do sound for some people.
I had a little General Tso's chicken and lo mein noodles. I was in a noodle moodle.
Oh, yes, that would be much more appropriate for our transition later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll describe that movie in just a moment. But first, I'd like to welcome our guest coming from Houston, Texas. This is my friend, Evan Gardner.
Howdy, how's it going?
We're happy to have locals here. I have to actually also say thank you to Cam, because she was the one that said, you got to get Evan on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
This type of thing is right up his alley.
For sure.
Well, we always start with some warm-up questions here. Start with you, Evan. What is a movie where you got in big trouble for watching it? Like an R-rated movie that you watched too soon, a movie where like you told your fiance or your girlfriend or your wife that you'd wait to see it with her, but then you saw it anyway.
It shouldn't be interesting at all, but actually, Bull Durham. I think I watched that way too early. Maybe like I had a buddy who didn't have cable but had a VCR, and we could just watch anything that they had, and that was a mistake.
It was a mistake to watch it too early.
I got in major trouble. I think just for the sex scenes. It wasn't like trying to shield me from the realities of minor league baseball. But
well, is this something that like your parents found out?
Oh yeah, no, they found out when I got home. I came back down the street and was like, I watched this movie called Bull Durham, and they were like, you should not have.
Yeah. Oversharing with the parents will do that. What about you, Chad?
Of all the movies I've gotten in trouble for, Spider-Man 3 is probably the most regrettable. My wife and I had a thing, before we were even dating, we went to see the first Spider-Man together as friends. And I went to see Spider-Man 3 before our wedding date and didn't tell my wife she wanted to see it. And so she was really mad at me. I was really mad at myself because I saw Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had to go back and hide how terrible it was to my wife. Like, yeah, it's going to be fine. And suffer through it again in pure silence and wait for her opinion. Yeah, well, I've been punished twice now.
So you came clean right away?
Oh, we knew. And she's like, we're going again. You're going to go watch it again. Oh,
this
good.
is great.
This is fine.
Hey, punishment fits the crime. Yes. For me, now the reason I love this question is I actually take this really seriously, and I'm not someone who spends a lot of time in movie theaters, to where when I was trying to answer the question, I actually don't have an answer because I was always afraid to make someone mad for this reason. So I'm going to flip the question a little bit, which was that my girlfriend in college went to see Smokin' Aces without me. Now, it wasn't that she went without me. It's that she went and saw it with another guy who she was in the process of breaking up with. Now, I thought it was funnier to call her my girlfriend. We weren't dating yet, but we were about to. She just needed to break up with this dude. In the end, I didn't end up seeing the movie because I was still hurt. And I think I was also mad that she was like dragging out ending that relationship too. Evan, what's the last movie that you saw? Doesn't have to be in theaters.
Well, it's going to be because I had to think about it before that and couldn't come up with one. I think the last one I saw in theaters was, the new Batman.
Okay.
Which was a slog, but it was good. I mean, it was a long movie, but I don't know. I was not of the group that didn't like it. It is what it is, you know?
Our other host, Brian Fry, is a huge, Pattinson, redeemer. He needs people to realize he's more than just shiny vampire.
I'm right there with you.
Anybody...
I think we're pro Pattinson.
Yeah, the next Batman, though, is just going to be 3 hours of a dark screen, like a pitch black screen. You can see nothing, and we will still praise it. They just keep getting darker and darker.
When we just keep getting older and older.
That'll have a killer soundtrack, though.
Yeah. What about you, Chad? What was the last movie you saw?
I watched 2022 Zombie. I think that's how you would pronounce it. BAE. Like I don't know what girls call each other. It's not good, but it's better than it ever has right to be with that kind of title. Like, it's something when you see the title and you watch it, you kind of know what you're getting.
Zombie. So was it like Club Dread vibes, or was it more like really young kids or something, like in the digital world?
The closest thing I can come up with is the canceled Netflix show Santa Clarita Diet. So,
cool.
So the husband gets bitten and the wife has to deal with his newfound hunger, and they're working it out as a marriage problem type issue.
Yeah, that was Drew Barrymore.
Yes,
right?
that was excellent. This tried.
It's tried its hardest. I had a little time over the weekend, so I did a little John Carpenter and Kurt Russell double feature.
Okay.
I watched The Thing. Well, I rewatched The Thing.
Excellent.
And then I had actually never seen Escape from New York. So I had a chance to kind of soak up some of that dynamic between them, because tonight, Chad, what movie are we covering?
We are doing 1986's Big Trouble in Little China.
That's right, another collaboration between Carpenter and Kurt Russell, starring Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, and James Hong. Released in '86, it grossed $11 million domestically. It placed number 71 in the box office, right behind Firewalker and just above Under the Cherry Moon. Two movies I've never heard of before.
Nope.
The number one movie that year was Top Gun. This movie has a 7.2 IMDb rating. The critics' tomato meter is 75%. The audience likes it a tad better at 82%. And you know what, Chad? This is actually breaking a little slide for us, right? We did have a nomination for this movie. John Carpenter was nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Music for this film.
Of course.
Which, to be fair, I did dig the music in this film. And I did know that he had a band, and that his band records music, actually recorded the theme song for this movie. More than just a composer. I always think that's pretty neat when someone is so multifaceted. But as far as sort of how we got here, Evan, had you seen this movie before?
Yes, quite a few times. We're probably pushing 50 maybe for my whole life. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we used to go on a lot of road trips as a kid and had an old little portable DVD player that you could jam in, and that would be one of those. Absolutely, let's just watch that again. Anytime it was on TV, that's what we do, for sure.
Yeah. So a movie that if it's on, clear my schedule, I'm gonna sit down and finish it out.
No, it's a comfort film for sure. No, it's like watching that, like Lord of the Rings. Once it's on, you're committed, right? If you catch it, you gotta finish it.
Yeah, well, a lot to keep your attention. What about you, Chad? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I think I saw it sometime in my early teens, maybe 12, 13 range, and it's one of those movies that was on TV, and it definitely gets your attention pretty quickly, and then you're just sitting through this bonkers action comedy, and yeah, I have not even eclipsed 10 viewings? I don't know. I feel like this is a movie I hit in the middle most of the time. I rarely get the beginning. So it'd been a while. It's probably a decade plus of me seeing this. I was thrilled. We were talking before the show and told Evan this was not a debate. When this short list came up, it was
question.
Big Trouble in Little China. We're doing this. I want to visit this movie. So definitely grateful.
Dear listener, please know that earlier today when I was driving home, I was thinking about what's the perfect word to describe this movie, and I believe Chad just nailed it on the head with bonkers. And here's the best part, y'all. Of course, this is the number one thing I bring to the podcast. I had not seen this movie before.
What?
So I got to be in the position where I was able to experience it for the first time. Truly a gift from Evan, our guest, and then from Chad, who did not give me a choice. We're doing Big Trouble in Little China. So it was awesome. I was expecting, I don't know, I've seen the poster before. I had seen what this looks like, at least I thought so. Some awesome shoulders from Kurt Russell, and I don't know, some other stuff. I actually had no expectations for this movie, didn't know what it would be, especially considering they use the term like Little China for Chinatown. I think that's what kind of threw me, was I didn't know that's what we would be getting. So it's kind of a surprise. Do you remember your first time with this movie, Evan?
Yes, yeah, actually, I do. I was probably... I must have been out for about 10 years at that point, because it had come back out, like, there was a TV release for it, and I watched it on, I want to say AMC with my parents, and it was a rainy, like, Sunday or something. Yeah, watching this and going, I think the point at which it got me and I went, oh, this is insane, was the... when one of the storms self-destructs at the end. And I remember watching that and going, what on earth is this? This looks like a Jim Henson, like this looks like The Labyrinth. This is so cool.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, interesting that you could say something like, because this is generic enough, you could say, when one of the storms blows himself up, and there's still some detail you're missing there.
Oh, yeah. We keep it ambiguous, because there's a lot of people that haven't seen... You're actually the second person that I've gotten to watch this for the first time this year.
So glad that you did. And we'll get into more details about the movie after the break. I will say, with my no expectations, you've seen this 50 times. Chad, do you remember your first time watching this? Was it something that was like, oh, earmark this to come back to? What was your first time like?
I don't think it was earmark. It wasn't like run to the video store and immediately rewatch it type thing. It almost seems like a fever dream because no one really talked about it around me. And I would have the same memories of, hey, remember the eyeball puppet explosion or this giant eyeball monster that followed people, or everybody that was like Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was huge. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But I felt like I was a loner, and so I just kind of kept this to myself.
Yeah, we will talk about that a little later. Well, I don't think it's a stretch to ask if you enjoyed it the first time, having seen it 50 times. I certainly enjoyed it. Now, one of the things I was about to say to Evan, I didn't want it to seem rude, but the very first thing I was going to mention was, how do I put this question? I was going to come in with, Evan, are you approaching this movie with the intention of convincing me that it's good?
I am absolutely. Not necessarily that you should think it's a cinematic classic, but I think it is a masterclass in pacing and also in the correct way to get through exposition instead of
the
crutch.
Correct way.
Oh my lord, the correct way to get through it.
Hire Gracie Law
like a Band-Aid. Don't worry, it's just me, Gracie Law.
Man,
there is so much exposition that they condense down in about 45 seconds. It is a perfect, and it's one of those, if you're a big John Carpenter fan, it is the complete end of one spectrum. It is the fastest and the only true action movie he ever has made. And it's, because a lot of the rest of them are kind of slow. It's a fast movie. And it's really good. It's not one of those things that you have to like. It's entertaining. It is one of the most entertaining movies.
Yeah. And then, okay, well, I think we've talked enough about sort of our experience with it. After our little ad break, Chad's going to come back with a full plot summary. So this is where you pause the podcast. Go check out Big Trouble in Little China if you haven't watched it before, because Chad is going to spoil it. And then I've got a special little treat for right afterwards. You guys have already actually kind of touched on it. But we will see you after the break.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
All right, and we are back. let us remind you, this is the time where you should have seen this movie already, otherwise you're going to get a whole lot of details spoiled for you. Chad, with a plot summary, take it away.
I mean, this is going to make it sound like a normal movie, but here we go. After winning a bet with his friend, truck driver Jack Burton heads to the airport with Wang Chi to ensure he's paid. Wang's fiancée is kidnapped by the Chinese street gang, the Lords of Death. Tracking the Lords of Death to Chinatown, Jack and Wang encounter a street battle between the Shang Tsung and Wing Kong. When the mythical three storms arrive and slaughter the Shang Tsung, Jack hops in his big rig and runs over David Lopan. Exiting his truck, Jack finds Lopan unhurt but glowing with magic. Jack and Wang escape, but his truck is stolen. Wang takes Jack to his restaurant, where he, along with a lawyer friend Gracie, his buddy Eddie Lee, and magician Egg Shin, explain the myth of the cursed Lopan. The curse can only be broken by marrying a green-eyed woman, which just so happens to be the color of Wang's kidnapped fiancé's eyes. Wang and Jack break into Lopan's stronghold, and after a harrowing trial, defeat Lopan and the Three Storms, saving both Wang's fiancée, Miao Yin, and Gracie in the process. They go back to Wang's restaurant to celebrate and say their goodbyes. Jack drives away, but unbeknownst to him, a mysterious creature is now hitching a ride on his truck as the credits roll.
Yes, and we have no certainty as to how that will happen as the Pork Chop Express goes screaming down the highway with some type of orangutan man ominously coming behind him. Man, it is hard to think about what did you say? Like, I'm about to describe this like a normal movie.
Right. That seems normal. I left out most of the weird magic and things exploding, and just all kinds of banana stuff.
And we have martial arts on display. We do have magic in the name of sorcery. We have a curse. We have a lot of stuff to cover in a pretty tight window here. And it is everything. It is taking everything within me to not immediately just jump into some of the bonkers stuff. But I do have something planned because, during one of those action sequences when they are getting into the lair of our bad guy, we have something that's becoming an absolute Chad and Dustin classic. Chad, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the children getting...
Well,
okay, no children,
it's not a no children thing for us. It's a wheelchair action scene.
Oh, goodness, yes.
You know who to come to for your wheelchair action. It's Chad and Dustin with the Retro Movie Roundtable. And when there are 3 wheelchair action movies within the Chinese Zodiac established time interval, you know what it's time for? It's time for the Big Trouble in Little China quiz. The winner will be dubbed the Emperor of Podcasts, and the loser will be sent to the Chinese hell for kids who can't read good but want to do other stuff good too.
But the Chinese have a lot of hells.
There are 2. Yes, the Chinese have a lot of hells. One of those unexpected little gems from this movie. So, dear listener, we are going to get into the plot of this movie, but first, let's do some of these little trivia questions here I've got for our guest and my co-host. I'm going to ask 5 questions each. Chad, on our Skype call, I'm going to ask you the same question. You have time to think about it. I want you to type your answer to me because I'm going to have Evan go first, and I don't want you to just take Evan's answer. So I want to make sure you have your answers locked in, okay?
All right.
Now, some of these questions will be as easy as finding a street fight in Chinatown. Others will be as hard as finding a Chinese girl with green eyes. You'll have a little bit of time, but through the sorcery of ancient Texas sound editing, our listeners won't have to wait for your responses. Chad, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Evan, are you ready?
Almost certainly.
And here's the first question, which I think is kind of an easy one. The Three Storms have an iconic wardrobe. What internationally acclaimed video game series drew inspiration from these villains? Bonus point to name the character. All right, Evan, what is your answer?
Oh, that would Mortal Kombat and Thomas Jane's Raiden, I assume. Or no, that's not Thomas Jane. Who is that?
Oh,
that's,
Christopher Lambert.
Christopher Lambert.
Yeah, that's who we needed to play.
You got me messed up with Spider-Man 3.
And I can tell you that Chad also got that answer. He sent that to me. So that is 2 points for both of our contestants. Let's move on to question 2. What car are our heroes driving on the rainy evening on the way to find Miao Yin after leaving the Dragon of the Black Pool restaurant. For clarification, this is the car they're driving during the elaborate ruse where Jack is incognito. Henry Swanson is his name and excitement is his game.
Oh, yeah. I actually know this, and it's a bit of trivia about John Carpenter as well. It's a pink Cadillac Coupe de Ville, which is John Carpenter's band's name, that actually does all the songs for Big Trouble.
It is a Cadillac. That's what I was looking for. I had it written down specifically as a Series 62, and it's from 1959.
Oh, yeah.
Chad, I'm going to take your answer as 1930s touring car as not quite what I was looking for.
Yeah, there's another scene where they're driving around in a touring car, and it actually gives backlot tours now. It's still in use. So, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten the specific Cadillac, so yeah, I'm out on that one.
Oh, like Egg Shen's bus?
Yes.
Egg Shen.
Yeah, okay, no, that's, I would count that. That's fair. They do have it in that.
Egg Foo Young Tours. Yes, that's why. Thank you for mentioning. That's who we're sponsored by, is Egg Foo Young Tours from San Francisco. All right, so, this was mentioned before the break. There's a happy little looking beholder floating around the bog of dead trees underneath the lair. Yes, a little fleshy guy, a floating fleshy ball with more eyes than it should have. What does Egg Shen call this creature? I'll give you a hint to both of you. It's not very complicated.
I'm going to guess a seer.
A seer is incorrect, Evan. A seer is incorrect.
I have no idea.
Well, he seemed to recognize it because there's a lot of lore to this movie, a whole lot of lore to this movie of stuff that's introduced to you that's pretty neat. And so the characters know each other, they know each other's backstories, they know this ancient Chinese history. Well, that thing is called a guardian.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
No points for that round. Question number 4. Now, I had a feeling that due to the industry in general and the time that this movie was released, that Miao Yin was not actually played by a Chinese actor. So I looked her up. The first thing that the internet thinks you know her from is being the Penthouse Pet of the Month.
Right.
In what year, contestants? In what year?
To 1985.
All right, that's 1985 from
Price is
Evan.
Right rules.
And from Chad, we've got 1979. I'm giving this to Chad. It was 1981.
Oh, all right, yeah.
But I also have a bonus multiple choice question. Bonus, thank you, Egg Foo Young Tours. What is the first thing Google fills in your search bar after you type the name Suzee Pie? And this is a special multiple choice question. Is it A, Suzee Pie Heritage, B, Suzee Pie Eyes, or C, Suzee Pie Feet?
Darn you, Google, with that. I hope it's this, and she's... Yeah.
For the dignity of the human race, I'm going to go with A.
You guys are both correct. You both said heritage, and heritage is correct. For the dignity of the human race.
Yes. Feet is always the second option. But you know what, Rex Ryan? You keep Googling that, and you'll make it number 1. Rex Ryan and Quentin Tarantino are the people driving this.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, so this is my last question here, and this is the one that was also hinted at. Gracie Law spews exposition out faster than anyone in the history of recorded time. To the second, how long does it take her to introduce her character and explain why they must handle this mysterious Lopan situation themselves while they are in the restaurant?
It's got to be like 5 seconds.
Okay. We were at a very small amount of time, so I have to go with Evan here. She manages to knock out a whole lot in 23 seconds. In 23 seconds, she manages to get this information out for the benefit of us, the audience. Look, you know me. I'm always poking my nose where it doesn't belong, and as a result, I admit it, this mix-up is my fault, sort of. But I've got it on good advice that those punks that jumped me and ripped off his truck, the girl they kidnapped that took her over to the White Tigers for a quick sale, who was she? Oh God, I'm sorry. If we get over there tonight fast, maybe we can buy her back. A search warrant's too complicated. Violence, out of the question. She manages to let us know, all right, we are going, and we are going fast. All right, well, as the result of our last question, we do have a new emperor of the podcasts on the internet. Absolutely. That is our guest, Evan. Thank you for playing, Evan. Thank you for playing, Chad. We are going to put a long probationary period on your sentence to being sent to the hell of kids who can't read good and want to do other things good too. I just had to get those silly little trivia things out because this movie is chock full of fun little things. Let's get back into the plot. So, we've got Jack Burton as our primary hero. I think the way that the movie is set up. What do we like about Jack Burton?
Well, it's I was going to say it's interesting because that's the idea is that he is the primary hero, but only for your viewing of it. He's the sidekick in the movie. He's Wang's sidekick. That's why he's bumbling. But I mean, he's a good one for it. He's loyal. He's honorable. He comes after. I mean, he may be a bit of a twit sometimes, but I mean, he always comes back. He's always in there as long as Wang owes him money and somebody's got his truck.
That's a good point. He's kind of Chad, would you say that like he's kind of along for the ride only because he's looking after number one? He's trying to just get his money?
Yeah, I think so. I think to some degree he wants to be a hero, but we have a lot of telling exposition throughout the movie. Is this the first time you've plugged someone? It's like, of course not. But you can tell that he's completely ill-equipped. He does the Yosemite Sam American Yeehaw moment of shooting the ceiling during the final big showdown and knocks himself unconscious. I think part of him wants to be a blowhard and be the hero of his own story, but he winds up coming off more as like Inspector Clouseau.
Like succeeding almost in spite of himself.
Yes.
Well, you know, this being special for me because I had never seen it before, I'm thinking to myself, who is this Jack Burton guy? He's a truck driver. And seemingly nothing else. Now, old Jack Burton would tell you it's all about the reflexes. So if there's anything about him as a character, it might be that he's got great reflexes. Aside from that, I don't think we really see him gain the upper hand in any fights.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, not for longer than a second. I mean, he accidentally shoots two guys. He stabs a dude with his boot knife, which is pretty slick for all of 1 second. I guess he accidentally kills but even I guess Lopan's not really the big bad villain. It's one of those. I think it's interesting the way you brought that up because originally the screenplay was written as a Western that got updated. Which, if you're thinking about it, a man rides into town on his horse. All he's got is his reflexes, and somebody steals his horse. Which is why he's doing a John Wayne impression the entire movie. That's the bit.
I think John Wayne had it together a little bit more. I don't remember John Wayne.
Sure.
I don't remember him asking, well, what's that? What's going on? Who is this?
Right.
Get to the point. I don't understand any of this. Which I have to say, as a first-time viewer, was incredibly charming and helpful to be like, no, this guy doesn't understand any of this stuff going on either. What do you think the first moment for you, Chad, of just sort of like, oh, things are escalating?
Oh, man. It's got to be when they're driving into Chinatown itself and the street gangs are both there and he's frozen in the truck as these gang members are there. And then we get the three storms. It's already escalated to full out West Side Story, just minus the snapping. But then we get...
This is Far East Side Story.
Yes, but the three storms, that's just when you completely know he's out of his element. He attempts to punch them. That's just his go-to. There's a giant green ball in the sky. The three storms come back. He tries to punch them. Like, why? Why punch the god of thunder?
Yeah, so we have a little, very short opening scene, which I learned was actually inserted after initial screenings. Or no, it was inserted late, which was... I really would say that Wang is the more capable of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's very cool. Sort of like who's the Green Hornet sidekick?
Kato.
Kato is obviously like the martial arts master. And so what we have here is, I think the movie could have been served equally well as these two are equals and friends, but we have it kind of set up like, okay, this is the courageous man. Jack Burton is kind of the hero. And then at the end of that short little vignette, then we have the magician, the sorcerer. We have Egg Shen create lightning within his hands. So I think we escalate pretty quickly. And I'll say, for as bonkers as the movie gets, that first 2 minutes or 3 minutes when I think he's talking to someone that's supposed to be his lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm taking this pretty seriously.
Oh boy.
Which may have been a mistake on my side. And then, we see that he's a truck driver. He's gambling with his friends in Chinatown, one of them being Wang Chi. I thought it was appropriate that when Wang Chi starts talking about this girl he's supposed to pick up from the airport, what does Jack Burton do? He starts rolling his eyes. He doesn't have time for this romantic BS. Like, all right, well, you owe me money. Get my money. All right, I'll take you to the airport. He really does narrate the stuff that he does as well, aside from asking the important questions like, well, who are these people? So we go to the airport, and then we're introduced to something I don't think we saw enough of, which was tell me the name of that gang again?
Oh, the Lords of Death.
Well, yes.
So let's get to this then. Evan, will you explain how this is the correct way of doing exposition?
Oh, with when they show up and it's so when I say it's the correct way of exposition.
You were talking generally.
Yeah.
However,
but specifically in this, because I think that's the first time you get Gracie Law, and you get the first time where she very quickly just shoves something into the side of a conversation. And it's the rip the Band-Aid off approach. Say it so fast that nobody notices you're putting in exposition.
Okay.
It's just, this character is, like I was saying it before, is like a 1930s, it's like an Adam West Batman, or like a 1930s radio play. Like I was watching The Thin Man the other day, and that is how Gracie Law talks. Like just this sharp.
And it was fun. I'm not going to say I'm up to date on Kim Cattrall's filmography. I didn't recognize her right away.
Oh yeah, it's like one of the first.
Oh my goodness, look at her. And Jack walks right up to her. What a great line to open up with. Hey, can I ask you a serious question? And she's very much like trying to blow him off, but within the next 45 minutes, they are romantic interests. It's fun, the speed. Chad, comment on the speed here of just how quickly we accelerate into. Now we're going to Chinatown. Now we've got the 3 Raidens showing up. Now we've got a green meteor. Now we've got an ancient curse. I mean, was there a point when you ever wanted it to slow down, or were you just like, oh, let's just chug along?
I mean, we did Crank together, and what was our complaint? There was slow down. So no. And to clarify, we did the movie Crank. I should probably not say we did Crank together. But yes, this is a walking... Well, that escalated quickly from Anchorman. So yeah, I wanted to just pile on, and all of a sudden we're in a lair. Oh, there's a basement of the lair that has a giant glowing skull escalator. There are throne rooms everywhere. All of a sudden there's a ton of ninjas that come in. Jack somehow got an Uzi that makes weird sounds that doesn't sound at all like an Uzi and is shooting locks.
Yeah, I think it's also the first gun of that size, whether you call it a submachine gun or a MAC-10.
That is a Tech 9.
A Tech 9.
Which is famously a semi-auto that people convert to full auto, and it does fire horribly slow compared to an intentionally semi-automatic weapon. But no, that also, oh my god, the gunshots in that, all of the stuff is wrong. The dude with the 2 Colt 45s has rifle rounds in his bandoliers that do not fit the pistols he has. Like, they're not... It's so wrong. All the guns are so wrong.
That is why he is the newly christened emperor of the podcast. That's a lot of great, cool little small info. I couldn't believe like you would expect that to be, to spray and pray, but he handles it okay. I will say Kurt Russell in the movies I see him carrying a gun really looks like he can't be bothered by it. He's like, just get this thing out of my head. He carries it like a pack of cards or like a cell phone. Like it's just in his hand. Chad, you mentioned that we're in this sort of ninja lair. I did not realize that ancient Chinese architecture had so much neon involved.
It's been updated.
on my second watch, I did notice that it was an escalator. But yeah, it's kind of a little team, which I think was kind of fun. Do you like, instead of it being like a buddy cop or like a buddy movie, we've got like our little crew, and it's not like a heist crew. We're like explosives guy and the money man. We've just got our own little crew.
Everybody's independently invested. Like, every single person that's coming is independently invested in what they're doing, right? Wang's trying to get his girl back. Jack's trying to get his truck back. Gracie's going in for her story, or going in because the civil rights of the whole thing. Her reporter friend is coming, and Eddie's coming because he likes the reporter. So everybody's got their thing, and they all would be here regardless. But it works. It's not like there's a reason they're there together doing what they're doing.
Margot gets sidelined a little too early for my liking. I enjoyed that character. And they're just like, you stay here, which is a line that never works in any other movie. It's like, I don't remember her getting in trouble, but maybe she does. Nope, she literally stayed put.
That's good. I mean, she does get captured.
The first time, and then listens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but so we've got a lot going on. You actually did say the name of the gangs earlier, the Shang Tsung and the Wing Kong.
Yes.
And then the three Raidens show up to help one side. I couldn't keep that straight.
They help the Wing Kong.
They help the Wing Kong. And we also learned something about Lo Pan, right? Another thing that took Kim Cattrall's character only 12 seconds to say was that Lo Pan is the godfather of Little China. You mean the David Lo Pan that's chairman of the National Orient Bank and who owns the Import-Export Trading Company? In the same breath, but he's so reclusive that no one's even laid eyes on this guy in years? That Lo Pan?
No, the other Lo Pan.
It's different
Lo Pan.
Different Lo Pan.
Yeah, I really like this because in a lot of movies, especially from the 80s, you have the like progressive, the hero just fights a tougher and tougher and tougher dude, and he like fights the henchman and then eventually works his way up to the big boss. I like this because like David Lo Pan is a sorcerer, David Lo Pan is just a guy. Lo Pan is a sorcerer, but he's got the storms there because they are so much better at fighting than he is. He's got stuff to do. And so, like, that's the only reason Jack can even get, like, Lo Pan is the weakest of the three. He gets, like...
Yeah. He goes down kind of like a chump.
Yeah. He's one of the people that hired bodyguards with cause. Like, he knew what he was in for.
So I am a huge Mortal Kombat fan, and Lo Pan is the inspiration for Shang Tsung.
That's right.
And a lot of this movie winds up in Mortal Kombat, especially the first one. So you get the old, decrepit Shang Tsung. And yeah, it's kind of like that. You've got to fight through the Goros of the world to get to the final boss. But he's still the final boss. He made it happen. He manipulates the tournament. And in this case, he's trying to break his curse with the green-eyed woman, which how it takes him so long to find a green-eyed woman. I have 2 of them in my household. It's not that difficult, people. San Francisco, I guess, just has an extreme shortage. And neither of the actresses, by the way, actually had green eyes. Those are contacts.
Oh, those were contact lenses.
They are phonies.
Lo Pan would have been upset to learn that. I do think that this story is one, it was completely unexpected. And you get kind of bounced around a little bit before you get put on the main path, which is we don't really end up caring about the Lords of Death anymore.
No.
The Wing Kong, oh God, let me say it right.
You got it.
The Wing Kong and the Chang Tsung, their battles, do they get resolved at all?
Yeah.
So that gets brought, Eddie is talking about exposition, okay? Right before, Nobody Worry, It's Me, Gracie Law. When Eddie comes in as explaining all of that, he knocks that out in like... Yes, but he knocks out that David Lo Pan hired somebody to assassinate you've got me now. The Chang Tsung's guy, and then tricked... Essentially, but he kind of controls, I guess, the Wing Kong. They went there to go attack those guys, and then he sent the 3 storms when they lost to go and kill them.
Oh, okay.
And then I guess the Lords of Death are just like the non-magical street gang level of the Wing Kong. This was one of the things. So I was watching this with my fiance, and she's seen it a couple of times, and she went, "Okay," because we paused it at 30 minutes. She goes, "What is this?" And I went, "All right. Well, Lopan has been alive for 2,000 years and done nothing but create a criminal empire, the complexities of which span evidently 3 continents and several millennia. It does not surprise me. This is why can't find anybody with green eyes. He's a little distracted. His criminal empire has gotten the best of him."
Right.
Yeah, the Chang Tsung do show up at the end. They're the group that's helping Jack and Wang fight, but I guess none of them survive. Like we get the shot of 3 or 4 of them escaping this lair, and there are no more Chang Tsung. So I don't know. Maybe they just get buried in the rubble.
Or maybe only a couple of them. Maybe just one group of the most loyal Chang Tsung decided to come along with Egg and the rest of the crew.
Well, I think I don't remember if Egg escapes with them, because when they leave, they're in the main room, right? Lopan leaves with,
Meow?
Yeah. He leaves, and so Wang chases him, and then Gracie and Jack go to head him off at the pass. They go up the elevator, but Egg is just sitting there blowing up the throne room, and then I think they all bounce, because he shows back up later to help them up through whenever lightning, but they find some other way out, I guess. I have no idea.
We get some successes here. There were some women who were being kept in cages who are freed. That's like our first big win. And then also our heroes do escape with the help of Egg. Escaping after our sorcerer is defeated by... Now, this is the classic move. And if you don't know this move, you're going to lose at Mortal Kombat. What you do here is you throw your knife at the gong behind your enemy. You make him think, oh, this guy must be a fool. He's battling the knife. Then he'll pick it up and comment how this very obviously rubber knife is a very good knife. And then toss it back at you. Now, this is where you got him. Hook, line, and sinker. You catch the knife and throw it right back at his forehead. It is the classic move. But, the idea of what's the future of Little China, Evan and I were talking earlier, once the movie kind of lets you know that it's not taking itself that seriously and that we don't have to really explain in detail everything, there's no reason to, look into plot holes, because it's just we're moving so fast that you don't care about it.
I could only come up with one, at all. And I think there's a scene when they're being captured, when they're being held in the wheelchairs.
Yes, our favorite.
Yeah, great. No, right after the wheelchair conference, and then they go back to just being in wheelchair dungeon. When Wang's on the ground after they're freed, he talks to Jack, and he goes, "I understand if you don't believe me." And I think that's the moment that's kind of to the audience where it's like, look, we've exposed you to what this movie is. You do not have to care about it. But if you do, it's going to make this a lot more fun.
Chad, what's your take on this, what I consider generally great combo of martial arts and comedy?
Yeah, I mean, America loves Rush Hour. Those were huge, huge hits. And this is well before it. And part of the failure of this movie, at least when we were talking in the box office, because it screened really, really well, but the studio had no idea how to advertise it. Kurt Russell himself said, "I have no idea how to pitch this movie." He was told by John Carpenter to read it several times over before he was on board. So I think that's a large part of this. They didn't know how to lean into the comedy when they're advertising. Okay, action comedy. Even though we had Beverly Hills Cop in 1984, we've got stuff like that. So this movie could have been a huge success, and it's just so regrettable. It's a cult classic now, but John Carpenter got so frustrated with studio interference, and the studio is rightfully trying to, I guess, meddle with this madness. John Carpenter's just quits. He says, "I'm going to do independent movies from now on," because the studio didn't get what he was trying to do.
Well, I think what he was trying to do, in the end, this was complete. We even end with a kind of strange, an uncertainty, as the orangutan man is.
Carpenter really likes to do that in his movies. He likes to. They call them sequel endings, right? But he goes, "I like to do that and then have absolutely no intention of making an epilogue or a sequel or any." He did it with The Thing. Yes. Right? That is just that is how I like to end movies. He goes, "You don't deserve a resolution." Like you don't just because you sat through this doesn't mean you deserve a resolution.
Well, that's what I wanted to. I'm glad you mentioned Carpenter, Chad. With his other movies, I said I watched Escape from New York. That movie ends with something quite questionable. Now, actually, we end up getting a sequel to that movie 15 years later. But is that you being a horror guy? He had Halloween. Like, what do you think about Carpenter's influence here?
This just stands out as so different for me. The closest thing I can think of is something like In the Mouth of Madness, which is another just kind of bonkers type movie. When I think John Carpenter, I think of more steady pacing, where this is just, it's an accelerated clip throughout the entire movie. So I don't know. I have a hard time kind of fitting this in with his other works. It is so very different.
Well, I think you're talking about Carpenter, in and of itself, that's what makes it a unique movie. Is it's not just, you brought up the pacing, Chad, but it's not just the pacing, because they are traditionally slow. Like, his action movies are not action movies, right? Like, the big payoff of New York is they're kind of sliding over a bridge, going side to side. Like, they get chased a lot, but there's no... This is the only John Carpenter movie with, like, coherent, good action. It either ends up being like Ghosts of Mars, where it's frantic and terrible, or it ends up being like Assault on Precinct 13, where it's low budget and terrible. And it just doesn't quite... This works. All the action scenes
He can do a
work.
lot with a low budget.
He absolutely can, but it's one of those, you can only do so much. And like with the really early stuff, he was pinching pennies and making it work. Mm-hmm. This was the first time that I think he really had a chance. And I, from the onset, said, this is going to be a fast movie. Like, I guess he got the screenplay and said, I can't do this the way we did it before. This is going to be quick.
And he's going to put some of that budget into... What do we have in the bog of the dead trees? We have a sewer monster. Chad, remember our monster? And then we've also got the little guardian beholder. Like, this was, we're 50 minutes in and like, now there's mythical beasts involved?
Yeah, those things, they strike me almost more as Sam Raimi-isms, like Evil Dead 2 type things that pop up. But yeah, I appreciate, I don't know if the effects... I think they hold up for me because I understand this movie to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek cheesy. What second most shocking thing you said, aside from you hadn't seen this movie, was that it had a 7.8 IMDb and the critics were praising it. It's like, oh, that usually doesn't happen with cult movies. Usually you wind up seeing critics 46% or something like that, where audience is 78. No, people are really enjoying this movie, even... I think everyone's in on the joke.
Well, I think even at the time, Kurt Russell said it was one of the most confusing things, because he said 80% of the interviews, like the press junkets he did before, people were telling him like, hey, so what's it like knowing that you're going to have the #1 movie this summer? This is the coolest thing. And then it came out against like Top Gun and Aliens and everything else in the world, and it didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I think what happened is exactly what Dustin was saying about John Carpenter getting in kind of a match with the studio. They dropped the advertising budget. That's what everybody said, is they dropped it off. I think they got like $2 million total for the entire, and normally it's like, I don't know, a quarter to half the production. And he said it was just like it for whatever reason, and it found its life. He said specifically, VHS saved my career. VHS, like Kurt Russell, video saved my career.
Let's talk about Kurt Russell's career. Chad, is Kurt Russell one of our most underrated actors?
Oh man, he literally has the name Ego in the new Marvel movies.
Well, right, I know that, and I would say that Ego is actually less like of a huge presence than a lot of his other roles.
But yeah, I'm a big Kurt Russell fan. So I was talking with Russell earlier today. I was watching a Goldie Hawn movie with Kurt Russell, which happens with Overboard, and Kurt Russell winds up being John Carpenter's kind of muse for a time being. It's like Molly Ringwald when we were going over Breakfast Club. She winds up being John Hughes' muse for a little bit. So John Carpenter is just like, Kurt, I want you in this movie. We did The Thing. They have 4... He
likes working with the same guys. Donald Pleasance is one of his guys.
Yeah, they do 4 movies, I think, together. It's 4 or 5. But yeah, I like Kurt Russell's projects. I like his presence, and I don't think he brings too much machismo to this. Like, this is a role where he's kind of got to be a doofus, and he does a great job of it.
I almost think it's better that I wouldn't have liked this if he was ex-Special Forces.
Yes.
Oh, no. Yeah, he has to be what he is. I mean, I think that's part of why the movie works. I think it's part of the reason you don't question it is because Kurt Russell is questioning it for you. Like, he is nonstop asking questions, and you sitting there as the everyman go, hey, yeah, what is all this?
Yeah.
I wonder if Chris Farley got his Matt Foley impression from Kurt Russell, because it really sounds, when he goes into the brothel and he's trying to buy back Miao Yen, he sounds like Matt Foley in his van down by the river.
Right.
It's the same jacket and everything.
Yes.
Oh my God, I had never thought of that.
It really does. Yeah, and the big glasses, too.
I wonder if he also then took it for Beverly Hills Ninja.
With his role, what kind of he's doing for us, I was thinking, like, how frequently he asks, like, I mean, sometimes it's really valid. For instance, I think the household phrase would be like a Mexican standoff. And Wang says, oh, this is a Chinese standoff. And what does Jack do for us? What's that? Because we've never heard of one before.
Sure.
Oh, it's a West Side Story type meeting of gangs before the Raidens show up. Oh, okay. Who's that? And then a bunch of Raidens show up. Don't look at Lo Ban. And Jack says, I already did. Like, it's so very clear that he's out of his element completely. And I think that's Kurt Russell delivers lines unlike so many others. I think of the way he delivers lines in this movie. I absolutely love his line delivery in Hateful Eight. They remind me of barking out the things he needs to learn. It's fun. And then he does also have enough of like the roguish charm to get away with something like, hey, if we're not back by dawn, wink, call the president. Like his personality is something where, Chad, does it seem out of the question that like there'd be an animated series about the Pork Chop Express and all of his new misadventures?
I would watch that in a heartbeat. Like, sign me up. Sign me up for more of that. There are other mythologies that we could cover across North America. I mean, we just saw Predator go the prey territory. Got some Comanche mythology. So Big Trouble in Oklahoma. I don't know. Give me this.
I mean, you could like at Pork Chop Express. Think about a movie like Dusk Till Dawn. He could just roll straight into a whole bar full of vampires.
Well,
huge spoilers.
Isn't that great that sometimes a character that's not a part of a franchise is lovable in a way where you're like, I want to see more of that character and maybe run into other people from other franchises, right? You don't need a licensed DC or Marvel property to make a fun story. And this story, as wide as it starts off, and then it narrows you in as to the curse of Lopan and how to end this thing of his terrible search for green-eyed women that he's been poor at the whole time. Like, it narrows you in, and then, they save the day. And what do we get? We get another little kind of twist, which I think was fun from Carpenter, which was, are you even going to kiss her goodbye?
Nope.
No. And honestly, the last person he talks to is Wang runs back up and gives him a last second, like, hey, thanks again for everything. I thought they were going to, like, embrace and be, like, best buds or anything. But, he goes where the road takes him. And so the story was something that I did feel was unique. It all comes together in something that I did not feel a single time like this was something I'd seen before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a very good point. It's not like... there are movies that I can think of like after the fact that I think are in the same vein because they tick like 30%. I think like the Brendan Fraser Mummy is similar. You get your action-adventure, kind of a horror, kind of a comedy, but none of them hit the same notes, and definitely not like plot-wise. Like, oh yeah, there is a curse or there's this, but they very much did a good job of hitting everything and being very much like nostalgic, something you've seen without being anything you've seen, right? Like, it's not like anything else.
Yeah, because we're driven by the evil forces, or the ultimate evil, as Egg would say, are driven by James Hong. And I wanted to touch on this a little bit. This movie has a great combination with its humor. I think its humor is great. I know that our buddy Russell loves comedies. I don't rush to the movie theaters for comedies, but when humor is present and well done, like I found myself laughing in this movie. Thought it was great. Here's something I want to pose to both of you: is James Hong too funny for this movie?
No. He nails it.
I think the way he approaches it really rounds out his character as a guy that just has no tether to this world. He does not care about how he treats people, or just that scene where he's just messing with Gracie, just in her face, is right. One of those just like, did you just get like, did somebody boop your nose? He's a 2,000-year-old god king emperor, and he just booped your nose because he's bored.
Yeah,
like,
and he's watching CCTV. Oh, that really pisses me off.
It pisses me off to no end.
To no end, that's right.
Well, he has one of my favorite lines in the entire thing, which I think is a perfect thing directed at the audience, yet again, which was, "Shut up, Mr. Burton, you are not on this earth to get it."
But I'll present this to you, Mr. Quizmaster. Do you know why his lair looks so sweet?
No, I don't. Well, I would guess. Are you talking about like the very bright white room with like the fine china vases? That particular layer?
Oh, I'm talking about the entire aesthetics of the glowing skull or the throne room type area.
Okay, like the
all
marriage.
Of that stuff. Yeah, that it was something where I didn't know, but in the room like with the white vases where they go through the ritual of the burning.
Oh, I've had it. There's two. They have to do both. It is.
I thought to myself, this must be an existing place. This can't be a set. That's literally the only thought.
Burning Blade and Taming the Savage Heart.
Ah, yes, which they used the storms, lightning, storm, and rain to help with that. Aside from that, no. Lay it on me, Chad.
No, it actually was a set, but I am setting this up for Russell because Lopan is the deity of architecture.
Well. Yeah.
So we have an evil architect.
I do know you can actually, the sets after this movie, except for the one they destroyed, right? The marriage one, the outside, where they're gambling, and then the bits from the actual Chinatown were all stolen and reused by the group. They're in like a whole bunch of Janet Jackson videos. They all got used for music videos throughout the 80s and 90s. And you can see them all. You've got like little Kurt Russell and Lopan images in the background, and people just don't know they're there. But it's cool if you go looking for them.
Egg's garage was in Ghostbusters. That's Fire Station 23.
Oh, that is. Oh, that's a good eye. I very much enjoyed Gracie Law as... Anybody else watch, like, this got compared to Indiana Jones, and when you watch the Temple of Doom, Kate Capshaw's character in Temple of Doom is intolerable. Is one of the most annoying sidekicks in any movie, and it really brings that movie down. This is how you do that character right. This is how you be like, Kim Cattrall is such a delight in that role. That was so good.
I think she deserves some credit. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And bringing that story together for sure.
Her cadence is just so strange. It takes me a solid 5 minutes to just accept her as a human being. Because when we're introduced to her, it's so odd hearing her speak like that. And they didn't want her. I think that's kind of fun. They knew Kim Cattrall from Porky's. And so they said, raunchy comedy, that's not our thing. But John Carpenter was the one that just insisted on her. So Ellen Barkin was the one that was considered for the role of Gracie Law. She's in Buckaroo Banzai, which we covered, and is another absolutely bonkers movie. So check that one out. Hear what we have to say. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also cool, like based on the time frame, to see like Kurt Russell doesn't age, and some of these like. I know Ellen Barkin has had a very good career later on in her career as well. So like to see like when she would have been much younger, that was pretty neat. Well, I definitely want to give Kim Cattrall her flowers, but I also want to give some awards for this movie.
Oh yeah,
Chad, Evan, let's get into our superlatives.
Absolutely.
Evan, who is your MVP of Big Trouble in Little China.
My MVP of Big Trouble in Little China was Victor Wong as Egg Shen. He is essentially just wire fu Gandalf. He is the most overpowered. Like, essentially, I guess he's the same power strength as like Lo Pan, just chucking rocks and blowing people up. And something that I hadn't really noticed till I was watching this again and go back and see it. He is just casually smoking opium through the entire movie. Every time they are at the Black Pool, he has got an opium pipe in his bed. Like, he's not hanging out at the end once they've all got it. He's sitting off to the sides. But he's Gandalf.
Wire Fu Gandalf has to make it into this episode description. Good choice. Chad, who's your MVP?
I went John Carpenter. I think the lukewarm response to this movie causing him to give up on big studios. Look, this guy was right, and cult status proves that John Carpenter was right. This movie is charming. He does the music for it. He convinced Kurt Russell after making him read. He's like, now read it again. Okay, now read it again. Now read it a fourth time and tell me you're going to work with me. So yes, I love John Carpenter for this effort and for all the criticism he got. He gets his flowers now through our podcast.
Awesome. Well, I'm actually going to go with. I normally pick some like expected choices, whether it be director or lead. I'm going to go with Sandy King, who's John Carpenter's wife. Now, I didn't choose her because it's John Carpenter's wife. It's because she was the script supervisor on this movie, and she ended up being the producer with a lot of his like affiliated movies. Somebody had to say, "These lines, this dialogue." Is good enough. And that was her. And I gotta tell y'all that the it's like Evan said to me, once the movie establishes that it's not trying that hard, it's not taking itself that seriously, and we are moving, it's okay to break what you might consider like the rules of like movie making and just like boom, here it all is. And I thought that was awesome. So a great job covering the script. Best supporting actor, Evan.
Oh, I'm gonna go with the. Well, this was my point before. I think that Wang is the lead, and therefore Kurt Russell is the best supporting actor. And if you don't accept that, I'll take Gracie Law because just why not? Like, but I could have somebody expand on that more.
The fact that Wang didn't really have to do much martial arts training, he's like, oh yeah, I dabble, and apparently no, dabbling meant. I'm amazing at this and can do wall runs and things like that.
I heard that young man the entire time he was on set had a sword in his hand when he wasn't doing stuff. He did not want to mess up that last scene. And just every time he wasn't being shot on the side of the set was just practicing with a sword, trying to get it right for that duel.
And that's awesome that because I had to know if he did his own stunts. I looked it up. It seemed like he was up to the challenge. Who's your best supporting, Chad?
James Hong, who also had to do his own stunts even though he begged not to. He was terrified of that escalator.
The escalator,
because he was holding up his robe and he's like, I'm shaking because I'm so nervous. I begged for a stunt man. But you know what? Especially the decrepit Lo Pan, I love the just kind of insanity that he brings to the role. And he has his own separate Wikipedia page for all the stuff he's been involved in. So check him out. James Hong is just so much fun whenever he shows up in something.
I remember him saying something about like he's wearing platform shoes when he's on the escalator, and that kind of freaked him out. And then on top of that, we didn't even mention that Egg and Lo Pan do shoot Kamehameha waves at each other.
Oh, yeah.
And the waves have little like Voltron style fighters within the graphics, within the special effects that do battle.
Yes.
James Hong with his little fingers doing the pressing the buttons.
Pinky fingers. It looks like he's playing a video game.
So,
before video games were really widespread. My best supporting was Dennis Dunn as Wang Chi. I thought this was the closest thing to a straight man, and I think the movie needed it. I am not saying I wanted this movie to be more serious. I just think we needed him. Now, some of the things were corny, but that's okay. I still loved. He had a bit of the silly underneath his facade as well. And then Chad, I was brought on this podcast to do wheelchair movies, big boat movies, romance movies, and kung fu movies. So I had to go with him. All right, aside from the gems that are technically grenades, we've got a bunch of other hidden gems in this podcast. Evan, what's yours?
All right, so we're doing specifically character. I had the Shang Tsung's hand sign guy. I don't know if you caught this. So like when they first are in the they have a little thing, and he like keeps doing it throughout the entire. Just anytime anybody makes eye contact with him, he just makes the little hand sign. Just, hey man, Shang Tsung's.
Yeah, and we're all doing it to each other right now. But like that little, it's sort of a like a kung fu martial art like ready pose. It's not the welcoming palm; it's its own thing. But it's almost like this movie's version of the thumbs up or the A-OK.
very much so.
And they all do it to each other in the elevator, which I was rolling on the floor. What's your hidden gem, Chad?
I just went with the set design. I'm going to keep going back. If you put a giant glowing skull with an escalator and the throne rooms and these fantastical corridors with statues filled with art, whoever was designing this set, I'm pretty positive that's where most of the budget of this movie went to. And I'm glad they just went nuts.
Well, and that's another Carpenter thing too. I believe for The Thing, he went $1.5 million towards those all those practical things. I love when you look at not when the Beholder Guardian is floating, but when it's on the ground, you can see that it's sort of like a puppet from underneath, and it looks just as good as when it's the special effect. I love that kind of thing. My hidden gem is. With some of the John Carpenter action stuff, like I think there's times when like women have only one role in his movies, and in this movie we had two different sort of not lead women. We had two women in like the gang, and then we had a whole set of female guards. The women weren't just in cages. You had a whole set of female guards, and they're pretty formidable. And one of them wields tonfa, which are sort of looks kind of like a nightstick. And I used to practice with those when I took my karate class in college. In order to satisfy my athletics scholarship, you had to take one credit, and I would take karate. And I practiced with those, and she wielded them in a very proficient and cool way. So I kind of cheered for that. I thought that was very cool.
Tonfa woman, all right.
Let's go to our one of the harder superlatives. Who are you going to recast in this movie if you have to?
Yeah, I'd have to. That's hard. That is hard. The only one that I had, and it has to be just because of the role she was given, specifically, Mao Yin being a green-eyed woman with no lines to help her out, almost no lines to help her out, and no green eyes, kind of hurts. That's one of those, like, she had one job, literally one job, not through any fault of her own, and they had to do contacts for it. She did a lovely job, and she actually, I found out, did do really... Hong is just stabbing her. That needle is supposed to be retractable. It does not, and is just going into her arm. And you can kind of see it in her face, but she doesn't wince it at all. She doesn't wince. She does well, but you can't tell. And that's the only one I'd say.
Yeah, good. Let's get someone in that fits that role well. One of our past guests made a very similar choice one time. It was like, this character is supposed to be Native American, and you just get a big white guy in there to play Samson Posey from The Dirty Dozen. Sometimes you just need to, it's important to look at who and what and why you're casting. Chad, who's your recast?
Yeah, I went after Suzee Pie as well. I think she's just wooden in this performance. It's her first acting gig. She comes off of modeling, so I think nowadays you could put someone like Olivia Munn in this role, but for this specific time period, I think getting someone like Michelle Yeoh would be a huge win.
Yeah, and I think Michelle Yeoh, and I'm a huge fan of her. That's a great choice. My recast is originally Kate Burton was in my sights. Kate Burton playing Margot, but she's I don't want to target her. She plays that character very specifically, and that's how that character needs to be. So I'm gonna go with sort of on the kung fu side. Carter Wong plays one of the Storm's Thunder. And I would prefer it. we don't have too many very large, like huge mass kung fu actors, but I'd love to see Bolo Young there. You guys will remember Bolo from Enter the Dragon. I'd love to see him in that role. The strange thing is, Thunder in this movie is the only one that really has lines.
Yes.
And Bolo wouldn't do well with that.
Yeah.
But, that's essentially all I was looking at.
But Carter Wong, he was actually a martial arts instructor with the Hong Kong police, so he's got that cred.
Well, what I was thinking, and we moved Bolo into Carter Wong. We moved Carter Wong over to Rain. We lose Rain, and we keep Lightning. I don't feel good picking on them because they were iconic.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those. Rain is the only other one other than Carter that has kung fu, and very much similar to Suzee Pie is Lightning is just a model.
He's just a model. Yeah.
Who I think did learn some stuff, but still.
Yeah, Lightning was not Penthouse Pet of the Year, though.
Great hair, though.
Excellent hair.
$3,000 wig. He was talking about.
I read that. Yeah. He was very excited to be able to play a character with long hair.
I'm glad no one said Jackie Chan, because that was almost who we got for David Dunn. It's just they felt his English wasn't good enough. Obviously, we get Rush Hour, and that's a lot of fun, but man, I love David Dunn in this role.
Well, and it's never gotten better, and that's okay. I think of the two people I think of who speak a lot of English but have never really improved, and that's okay, is Jackie Chan and one of our finest tennis players of all time, Rafael Nadal, does not really care about speaking English any better.
No.
That's okay. He's got 24 Grand Slams. What is your best shot, speaking of shots, the best shot of the movie, Evan?
Best single shot, I gotta say, when Thunder explodes, it is both the most Carpenter shot of the film, and it is that's the one that sticks with you, I think.
It definitely stuck with me, especially like the bug eyes coming.
Yes. And it is only like a couple of frames, like it's almost nothing, and then it explodes off screen.
Was it important to the progression of the movie? Maybe not, but it was very cool to see that. Your best shot, Chad?
Wang and Thunder fighting, it's a door frame shot, and they just go in and out of frame fighting. It's used to great comedic effect. This has come up throughout several of our movies. Whenever they do this shot, I will clap. I will be entertained.
Yeah.
This is my shot.
Yay!
Yes, they did the thing.
They did it.
Such a good one.
And you know what? I didn't think about that one until my second rewatch. I think if you were to describe those characters, I would have said when they're both flying through the air at each other, I think 4 times. Like that would be the first, but it is actually the door frame shot that is best.
There's a couple of those where you go, it's a Scooby-Doo. There's a couple of lines that you could wait till they're done and go zoinks or jinkies, but it's like a Scooby-Doo moment.
Or like the high end of the xylophone.
Oh, he even does it with the score a couple of times where he gets in there just a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, like that kind of thing. He does it every once in a while, and I don't know if it's intentional.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's meant to add to the fun, because the movie adds to the fun. Okay, so that was yours, Chad. Mine is... It is after Lopan is defeated and they are just getting out. So one of the storms explodes, but Lightning is walking towards Jack as he's boosting everybody up through the manhole or whatever that is. And I gotta say, the lightning effects themselves in this movie are spectacular. I don't know if they, I can't think of many that were worse beforehand, but this looks as good as if it were made today. And from where he's walking, because he's silent, where he's walking from, it's in the dark, there's red light behind him, and he had just cast so much electricity that the big metal grate behind him is melting. He falls to the ground. It was an amount of take my breath away shock that I was like, whoa, didn't expect to get pulled into the visual candy. I'm surprised they didn't pick an actual kung fu thing. But
I wish there was
awesome.
more point to that shot. Because he dies in the next scene. They crush him with a Buddha.
They drop a Buddha on him.
Egg drops a Buddha on him.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate that's not the beginning of the movie to really establish, because it is you're right, it's so cool. That frame is awesome.
And when I was watching it the first time, I typically watch it the first time without taking any notes, but I had to whip my computer out real fast. This is the shot. Well, now let's go bigger to best scene. Evan, what's your best scene?
The Three Storms arrival. That is just That's the moment, because the entire thing going in there, and I love when they go down the alley for that, because Carpenter does this great thing where he changes the color tone of the entire shot, right? Everything when they're out in the day is all light, and then you get in there. When the three storms show up, that's when it's on. You know, that's when the movie's on. That's when it starts.
That is cool. And you also see something that isn't brought back, but they have a strange weaponry. Now, Thunder's sort of knives with the sort of reverse moon pommel in a way. Those come back, but one of the storms is wielding like little metal claws on the end of like chopsticks.
Yes.
And the other one is wearing like little propellers.
So this infuriates me, because not because the weapons are dumb, but because Lightning is holding the spinny ones. Why would they not give that to the wind guy? And why would they not give the thing that looks like tiny little lightning fingers, that are metal little lightning fingers, to the lightning guy? Wouldn't that make sense?
Well, and they end up giving Rain a great opportunity to show off these very cool dual sword techniques. Let's lead off with those. Let's show them. Instead, it almost looks like gadgetry. It almost looks a little too silly. But I still love that, and the reason I jumped on it so much is that's actually my best scene as well.
Oh, cool.
And also particularly because we get Jack's lines of well, who are these guys? that makes that scene even better. What about you, Jack?
You've accurately described it as a Dragon Ball Z type scene of Egg and Lopan just conjuring the spirits, and just the over the top for me with Lopan using his pinkies to manipulate things. This is the climax of insanity, and I'm here for it.
The climax of insanity. Yeah, if they ever did a Big Trouble in Oklahoma City or whatever sequel we were talking about, that needs to be the subtitle, is the climax of insanity. Evan, what's your best wardrobe or makeup moment?
Oh, wardrobe and makeup is James Hong. I mean, as Ghost Lopan, but I understand that the prosthetics for old Lopan were insufferable. He evidently hated them. But yeah, I can't imagine. But the classic Lopan being, and it's on Jack's shirt too. You ever notice that? That's Lopan on his shirt.
No, of course not. No, I don't have that eagle.
Yeah, it's
Chad,
just.
Did you notice that?
I didn't know.
He's running around with the bad guy of the movie on his shirt.
That's awesome. That's Spaceballs-esque.
Right? And just nobody... I didn't notice it until...
Like Short Round with an Indiana Jones t-shirt.
To say how much I love this movie, I own one of those shirts, and I didn't notice it until I owned it. I had to look at it while watching the movie and go,
I have one of
those. I'm silly, aren't I?
Apparently, the Pork Chop Express logo has been very popular on
I can see that. I also didn't notice till this time that he's actually carrying pigs at the beginning.
Carrying pigs
in the Pork Chop Express.
Oh,
he's hauling pigs.
Oh, okay. Like as his
load. Yeah, that's where he's taking to the wet market.
Because most of the movie it was without a trailer.
Yeah, no, that would have been impossible.
Yeah. Well, that's a good choice. What about for you, Chad?
Oh, for me, I need an explanation of this costume. But there's one bad guy in the lair that's dressed in like this dragon mask or goblin getup, and nobody else came to this costume party. It's like they tricked him, like they did to.
They told him we were dressing up.
Yeah, like Ryan Reynolds being tricked into, hey, it's a Christmas party. Come with an ugly Christmas sword. This dude shows up, no explanation. I want more of random goblin guy.
Yeah, I can't think of it. I can't even picture it as far as standing out in that way. I missed him. I missed random goblin.
He's in several shots and just nothing. Everybody, I have to imagine the budget was spent. Like everyone was going to be dressed this way, and then they're like, "Yeah, just one. We made it."
Is he wearing the same clothes as everyone
else?
No, it's just the goblin mask. No, he's full different costume.
Yeah, he's got like samurai type armor with a goblin dragon style mask.
Wow. No, I missed him. Wow, I can't believe it. Well, I have also seen a lot of movies with samurai masks and seen a lot of their helmets, and maybe I've just become desensitized to those standing out to me.
Huh.
Maybe. For me, I've got a wardrobe, which is Jack is forced to wear a light blue kimono, which is very fun when he's in the restaurant. So there's the kimono, but also I wanted to ask both of you, specifically the Ghost Lopan. the white makeup, the blue eyeliner, his very particular garb, and then there's a hat that has a nail through it, and that must be intentional. Is it like a Chinese spirit that he is that they're actually drawing from real lore?
I have no idea, but I'm going to speculate wildly based on something that Chad said, which was, I did not know until he brought it up, that Lopan was the, I don't know, deity or patron of architecture, and maybe something having to do with building is why he's got a nail through his head. Yeah. It also could just be some, like, Chinese style of a particular dynasty that I am completely ignorant to.
Well, right. Or it might be that the traditional garb looks like X, but it's almost like in lore, this guy does get cursed, and when he gets cursed, that's when the nail through his brain happens.
That would be interesting, like executed that way or something.
Yeah. But I thought, like, oh, this reminds me of like porcelain dolls or like geishas, that bright white makeup. So I wonder if you guys had any insight. Finally, I always like to give a worst wardrobe and makeup moment. Mine is there's Suzee Pie is put into a terrible yellow, like billowy tulle fabric mess of a dress, and it's awful, and I hate it. But that's not my change one thing. Evan, if you have to change one thing about this movie, it doesn't sound like you'd even want to, but if you had to, what would you change?
There are a couple. I mean, yeah, if I had to change one thing, I would. Partly you brought that up, making lightning's scene relevant at the end there.
That'd be cool.
And I don't know, I could have gone with more underground shenanigans in the with the black blood of the earth. That scene. It's only an hour and 39 minutes long. Like, you could have given me 5 more scenes with some more guys like randomly eaten by monsters.
Yeah, and have that be more of a threat, or maybe it explains some other disappearances that don't get solved, or something.
As a criticism of the movie, I have heard that and not thought about it until recently. Of somebody saying it never felt like the heroes were in danger.
Mm.
Well, you know what? I have something to say about that very soon. Chad, what is your change one thing?
Yeah, I think I want more Chinese hells. So I want this to almost be Dante's Inferno level. Like, we're going to visit different rooms, because we got, 2 or 3 of them. Mention the little monster, which Egg just goes, "You will come out no more," and danger's gone.
And he doesn't.
Yeah.
What will come out no more?
He tossed like 8 of those Skittle grenades as well. He used so many of them.
That is such a perfect Carpenter scene, though. You talk about with exposition versus not exposition. He takes the flashlight, shines it on them, and then throws them. Doesn't explain what they are, why they need light, what he's blowing up, where they're none of it. And they just grease the monster. Let's keep moving.
Let's keep going.
It's unimportant.
With the short time frame of this movie and how much they pack into it, I think if we could take the time used for Eddie and Margot and either combine that into one combined additional character who's part of the gang, or just put that time into developing the relationship between Jack and Gracie, I think that would be helpful. I didn't think that the time that they had on screen, there was some stuff that was corny. It was like, oh, why do you want to stay behind? Oh, Eddie has a crush on you. What? You mean the same way that you have a crush on Gracie? It was a very middle school, that line. And then, there's nothing wrong with being corny. But I think their presence didn't add too much for me. So I think if we could take our limited amount of time and reuse that for something else would be pretty good. Well, now, one of my favorite superlative, Evan, what is your best quote of the movie?
It may, in fact, be my favorite quote from an action movie in the 80s. It's hard, but for sure is the "I'd go with you, but I know there's a problem with your face." Do you not remember that scene? That is my favorite line. They're waiting to go, and it's to go storm the place for the first time as the telephone operators, and him and Gracie are having the argument. She goes, "Well, I'd go with you, but I know there's that problem with your face."
There's a problem with your face. I do remember it because I think it was right before that where it was like, oh, and he has to look stupid, and she's like, "Don't worry, he does." So they kind of give those little barbs to each other.
I love them.
Yes, I do remember that. All right, that's a good one. What about you, Chad?
I'm a reasonable guy, but I've just experienced some very unreasonable things. Like,
Yeah.
that is a great summation of everything that happens to Jack Burton.
That's kind of it's kind of tame too, like of him like not going, like not turning the knob all the way up to 11. Like he's just like, this is bonkers.
This is perfect.
This is very unreasonable.
Don't you love though? But like by the end, where he's accepting the answers to his question, what you got there? Where it's a 6 demon bag. Fantastic.
Sure.
What's in it?
Yeah.
Birth, fire, that kind of thing. Great. What's behind this? Is it paper? Yeah. Fuck it. Just cut through it. That's the fuck for the PG-13.
Right. They have to. Yeah. They're
one.
allowed to have one. There's another one too where right before Egg is about to have them drink the magic potion. What's in that flask, Egg? Magic potion? Yeah. Good. What do we do? Drink it? Yeah.
Thought so.
Good. Thought so. Like, it's all just coming together, and that leads me to my actual favorite quote, which is after they drink the magic potion, they're all in the elevator and they're doing the cool thumbs up to each other, and Jack says, essentially to camera, I feel kind of good. I'm not scared at all. I feel kind of invincible.
Evidently, Kurt Russell has fan interactions in elevators with that all the time. That is a classic. They just stand with him and just go, I feel kind of invincible.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, I need to hear Evan's rating for this movie. We do 0.5 is our lowest, 5 is our highest on a half star rating system. So out of 5 stars, what do you rate this movie?
Oh, I'd give it a solid 4 to 4.5 for sure. As a movie, absolutely. If you ask me as a film, maybe 2.
There we go. Yeah. Well, and as something that is, you've watched it 4 dozen times.
Oh, absolutely. I've learned to love it in new ways.
Yeah. Well, and I think the movie exists in its form, and it can't exist in any other way.
That's the best thing that I love when people bring that up. Like, that's one of those. There's nothing that John Carpenter can do, no remakes, no nothing that could ever ruin what this is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good rating. Chad, what is your rating?
Landed in the same range. I went 4 stars. I think it's just an absolute blast watching this movie and just getting to play along with it. And I think this movie is like the walking definition of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So collectively, yeah, is this a bad movie? Probably, but I don't care. I have fun.
And I'm going to go with, I'm a little lower than you. I'm going to go with 3, but I think I'm going to say it's one of the highest rated 3s I've ever given. And it punches above its weight class.
Absolutely.
And what you said about like it's greater than the sum of its parts. Remember, I'm coming in completely brand new. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, there's some stuff that really they're gambling on you not caring about a full explanation. They're gambling on you not needing perfection or I don't need to get into the things that I consider like rushed or any of that stuff. I just think it's better than what a 3 should normally be. But with some of the corniness, some of the pace, some of the shots, it's especially as a guy who, it's not right to call myself like a kung fu movie expert, but as being one of my favorite things, some of that stuff prevented it from going higher. But it's extremely enjoyable, and on top of it, I would recommend watching it, and I'm glad it was suggested for us. So, thank you, Evan, for picking that out.
Oh, it was my distinct pleasure.
You could tell.
I've got more.
You could tell. Well, we love guests to come back, and also a special thanks to Cameron for saying, you got to get my fiance on.
Oh, well, I'd like to thank her right back. This has been a great experience.
And we got to stop talking about Big Trouble in Little China for right now, because we got to select a movie for next time. Chad, you ready?
I'm ready.
Infidelity, Heartbreak, and Revenge coming your way next week. Option 1, First Wives Club from 1996. Reunited by the death of a college friend, 3 divorced women seek revenge on the husbands who left them for younger women. Option 2, Scenes from a Mall from 1991. On their 16th anniversary, a married couple's trip to a Beverly Hills mall becomes the stage for personal revelations and deceptions. Or Option 3, She-Devil from 1989. A surprisingly resourceful housewife vows revenge on her husband when he begins having an affair with a wealthy romance novelist. What are we going to pick, Chad?
Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to say. First Wives Club.
Wonderful. Well, Chad, thanks for joining me. Evan, thank you for joining me. And thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. We invite you to support the show with dollars on our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contribution is much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening, be good to each other, and watch more movies. Chad?
All those souls, and you still don't have one of your own. I pity you, sorcerer.